Of course. Wendy O'Leary, thank you so much for joining me in my lounge, virtually having our cuppa. Thank you. You're in
My pleasure.
Massachusetts, is that right?
Yes, I am in Massachusetts.
So what time is it there for you?
It is 3:40.
Yeah.
3:40, so late afternoon. Yeah, and it's nighttime for you, right?
Yeah, well, it's getting dark early. We're really in the depths of winter. We've had some snow this week and lots of hail. And I'm on the west coast of Ireland, so the snow doesn't tend to stay, which is safer on the roads and that. But it's just so lovely to see that snow and have that weather. But then you get over it very quickly and you want spring to come, you know?
Yes. It is beautiful though. Yes.
Yeah. Have you been over here?
I have actually. Are you in Galway?
Yes.
Yes, I have actually a couple of years ago.
Oh,
yes.
Really?
You were having a heat wave and we saw no rain, and everyone apologized to us that it wasn't as green as it usually is in Ireland everywhere we went, but it was beautifully green to me. So it's absolutely gorgeous there. Yeah.
That's why I chose when I moved back to come to the west of Ireland, because it's just so stunning, the scenery, you know, and being it really is the rugged west coast. Yeah.
Yes, it is beautiful there. Yes.
Oh, well, then you can relate to where I am, which is lovely. I have one brother who lives in Darien, down the coast from you. On the map, it's probably quite far, actually.
Yes.
On the map, everywhere looks closer
than it is. Yes.
Yeah. So he's been there for years, but I've been to New York and to Boston and California, but I haven't traveled as much as I would like to yet, but I will. I'll get there. Yeah.
So I'm about an hour away from Boston.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, from where I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Boston's full of Irish still, I'm sure. It always was.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. I see your book up behind you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear more about this and more about you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Can you tell me, I'm really always so interested as to how people came across mindfulness in the first place, because you're an author, an educator, and you're spreading mindfulness all over, I see, which is amazing. I love seeing your work, but I just love to know how it all started for you.
Sure. I think always, like even I remember when I was younger, I always had a lot of curiosity about just different spiritual paths and interested in things. And I have like these two distinct memories. One is looking up at the night sky and seeing all the stars and having this sense of like that spacious, opened feeling that really just kind of moved through me, and was really always curious about that. And the other is, I also remember in high school saying to my then boyfriend, you ever notice how like you're thinking and then you suddenly realize you're thinking? Who is it that realizes? So I always kind of was curious about how the mind, heart, body worked together. And I think did a lot of reading when I was younger and in college, but it really wasn't formally until after college I started to come across books about mindfulness. And then at some point when my children were younger, I found my way to a yoga class. So formally, probably first introduced through mindfulness of the body and really coming into my body and feeling that depth of being landed, really present in my body. And for me, a lot of people talk about Shavasana being that, but for me, it was tree pose. When I was in tree pose and I had that moment of like just stillness, and it piqued my curiosity. So I kind of dove in. I became certified as a yoga teacher, started teaching yoga to children, but then my own practice evolved into more of a sort of Buddhist traditional mindfulness practice. I live close to the Insight Meditation Society and Kripalu. So I have a lot of opportunity, a couple hours away for lots of workshops and training. So I kind of started to slowly find my way to those things. And through a lot of reading, I have one friend who introduced me to Thich Nhat Hanh's writings.
Yes.
Yeah, so I read some of the Thich Nhat Hanh stuff, and I was like, okay, it all was sort of fitting together, though, in this sense of really just kind of coming home to myself and being more present, present with my heart, present with my body, noticing what was working in my mind and how I was relating to my experiences on a daily basis. And so I really began the practice sort of on my own for a couple of years, just through reading, and then found my way to some of these trainings.
Yeah, and you're really blessed if you have all of those centers and like that you can grow and learn from those people to enhance your learning.
Yes. I know for me, like my practice at first, I was reading, I got this workbook that I think it was Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein.
Yeah.
And I can picture myself sitting in my kitchen doing the practices and then writing in the journal. But I was very isolated in the early days of my practice. I had that one friend who shared the Thich Nhat Hanh book with me, and we would talk. She didn't live nearby. So I started feeling and didn't even realize I had these resources. And then once I found one, it sort of opened up.
It opens you. How long ago was that then?
So that was probably about 20 years ago.
Okay, yes. So that's, exactly.
Yeah, so it was a while ago. And now once you notice one resource, then people are always connecting you.
That's it.
And when you start sharing, when I'm out and about and people hear what I do, they're like, oh, I've always been curious about that. And didn't realize the wealth of resources that we have, not to mention online, like that you're doing this. There's so many wonderful resources. I've taken multiple classes online to sort of deepen my own practice.
Yeah.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, as you say, with the internet now where we can be connected, that couldn't happen before. And as you say, when you open yourself to something, suddenly the whole world opens.
Yes.
And you find your tribe of people and you learn and share. And that's why I wanted to do this, is to connect with all of you. Because originally I thought I really want to talk to some of these people. And I thought, why don't I share it? And we can all learn together.
That's wonderful. It's a great idea.
It's so nice, because I know when you do the summit and you were involved in the summit, it's all about your work. But I like to know what's behind that.
Yeah.
I like to know where you started and the impact it has obviously had on your life.
Yes.
Personally, which has led to professionally. And then you're giving back. So I want to know the story behind the scenes. The real story.
The real inside scoop.
The truth. Yeah.
And what I think is so wonderful is like we're cultivating Sangha and that community in a more global, broader way, in that we have that ability. But I know for me, having community to practice with has really deepened my practice and my commitment to my practice. And I think has really given me the platform to be able to teach. It's through practicing in community and supporting each other in this practice is so powerful. Yeah,
because you continue to grow. And like I was saying last week, it's not like you learn and then that's it. It's which makes it really exciting, because you don't know what's next, who you're going to discover and what you're going to discover, and those light bulb moments. So
and we learn from each other so much. I know even when I run groups, I facilitate 2 groups for adults as well. I work with children through adults, and I learned so much from the adults in my group. Like we're learning together, right? We're journeying together. So I really appreciate your kind of expanding my journey more globally. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no, thank you. Well, that's what we're all here for.
Yes.
To connect and empower and support. That's what I love. And tell me a bit more about your book there. I'm dying to see. a little more. And you have a few books, right?
No,
Is it just that one?
So it's interesting. I started teaching children, and I really started predominantly with the yoga, but the way that I taught yoga to kids was very much body-based, very much about mindfulness of the body, feeling feelings in the body. And so as I started to teach the yoga and then shifting to more traditional mindfulness practices, it was like 15 years ago, and there wasn't a lot out there back then.
For sure. Yeah.
There weren't a lot of books. And so I was kind of experimenting, making things up. And I, in part, did it because these were tools that I kind of wished that I had thought to teach that I knew about when my own kids were little, and had those tools to share with my own children. So as, I started to see, well, this works, this practice has changed my life. Of course it could work for kids. And I often tell the story. My son was in a yoga club in school, and he came home and he was like, I'm going to do a breath of joy. And then I'll sit down and do my homework. I'm like, of course it will work for them too. So I started kind of making it up and teaching. But one of the things that was missing in those early days, so again, 15 years ago, there were not many. I'm in schools, mostly public schools. There weren't books for kids. So I had all these tools. I had the breathing ball and the jar and, all the stuff. But I really wanted, I'm an educator at heart. That's my background. I really wanted a book for kids. So I just wrote stories, and I used them as stories. And I kind of tried to get it published with not a lot of success. And so I just was using them as stories for many years. So I have written a couple and have used them all as stories. And then, I don't know, years ago, I crossed paths with ChrisWillard.
Yes.
Book, I always was, whenever I was out and about and doing like parent workshops or working with teachers, I'd say, this is a great book. It's solid. He knows his stuff. It's really helpful. So when he came to my community to do a program, I met him and we were talking, and he said, I really feel like there needs to be some children's books. And I said, I actually wrote 3, but I can't get them published. So he said, he's like, do you want, such a wonderful man, do you want to collaborate? And so we worked together because he had an idea that was very similar to my idea. And so we kind of brainstormed together and worked together to bring this book to life. So it was a very exciting process. But for me, like the idea of being an author and writing the book hadn't really crossed my mind. It was just, I wanted more tools.
That's it. Yeah. And if you see that it will, that it's the impact it could have, then, there are so many who can benefit out there from it. And the power through collaboration, there we go again. Hey?
And it's hugely beneficial, and I think so mutually supportive, because I don't know how it is for you there, but I think for many of us doing this work, we're kind of the only one in our, I'm in my house on my computer, I'm sending out emails, and then I go out and I'm in a classroom with a bunch of kids, but it's not like you're working in an environment with a lot of other adults often. And so that connecting and collaborating, what's worked for you? Oh, I did this and I felt like, didn't quite work. How have you taught this idea to the degree? I mean, we're all here to be of benefit. Like it's
that's it.
Not a competitive thing. This is about how can we share these practices as broad, for me, like take the practice, how can I share this as broadly as I can because I feel like this is what can change sort of the direction of our society. So to the degree we support kids understanding and being with their emotions and adults,
absolutely,
it's so important. And so having other people to share ideas with and bounce them off and learn from each other, I think is so powerful.
It's vital because it's, as we know, the issues aren't isolated to any one country. Right. It's all up, and that's why we got to work together. I feel there's great power in us coming together to give back and make and create change, and we can do that so much easier and in a more beneficial way if we do collaborate and work together. And we can let the world know that wherever they haven't heard of Wendy O'Leary, we want them to know, because, you know, you've got the tools there, and we need to share those. Yeah.
And
So
even if we're making a difference one child at a time, right? You know, planting, and I often think of it sometimes with the children, it can be planting seeds, right? It's, I'm planting seeds, and then maybe I go back again and I can water some of those seeds. But to the degree that we can all be doing that and are, you know, all over, we're getting these little gardens growing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I was speaking to a neuroscientist recently, and they were talking about the brain, and I was, you know, they were saying how the teen brain is constantly, it's growing. And I queried, you know, we're doing the training for, I have the manual I've created for teens, which is also adaptable for adults. And you know, that's what he said, is you're planting the seeds.
Yeah.
You're planting the seeds, and that's, you know, what it'll come out later. And I guess it's like us, you know, things dawn on us later. It's like, now that makes sense. Oh, now I can use that tool.
Yes.
So it's not wasted. It's, you know, even for young kids, they go home and they repeat, and it comes out later.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes they go home and repeat, and it's beneficial to the parents. I've had parents come up to me and say, oh yeah, we were having a rough morning, and my daughter said, oh, well, I think we should stop and take some belly breaths, and taught the whole family belly breathing, or, you know, whatever other techniques. So I think any ways that we're planting seeds, I always remind myself, like, I never know what the ripple effect, you just don't know. And so I have my intention. I try and be as responsible in doing it as, you know, responsibly as I can, and letting go a little bit of having to know what the result is. Like, I'm going to
the outcome.
Put it out there. Yeah. Let go of that outcome, sort of that my intention to be present with those children, or with whoever I'm working with, and be as, you know, I plan my lesson, you know, do my due diligence around my work and my effort, and then let go of the outcome.
That's right.
People land as people are ready for it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really good. So yeah, you're just holding the space really, and giving the tools, and it's up to that person. And how did you find getting into schools there in the States? I suppose you probably have similar challenges as one does globally, as regards funding, time.
Yeah, I think that I have experienced all of those challenges. Some schools are much more open and receptive than others. I think sometimes there's this desire to kind of check it off the list. So sure, come in and do, you know, but to not have sort of a more comprehensive perspective. I really promote working with teachers, because I think from a sustainability perspective, to the degree that we can get teachers, and in fact, even more so than going into schools and doing professional development, the piece that I'm really passionate about right now is trying to work with our future teachers, so they have these tools going in before they enter the teaching profession. This is part of their training, and that they have this understanding, not just in terms of teaching, but their own practice, right? How do we support people in cultivating that? Because we know in the helping professions how hard it can be dealing with all that's coming at you.
Absolutely. That's what, I was actually thinking that recently, that I'm not sure if it is here to some extent. I must check, but within the teacher training, as you say, it's imperative for their own well-being, and when they see how useful it is, they're helping themselves and this whole school environment, all of their students.
Yeah, so I really try and do, and I think some training for teachers has it, and some depending on the school. And so I've really been sort of out there supporting that and doing some professional development in addition to kind of the direct instruction in the classroom. I also do a lot of work in nonprofit. Sometimes it's another way in, another place those kids are, is in nonprofit organizations. So I'm very fortunate that I have really great relationships with many of the nonprofits in my area from prior work. So I can, sort of find my way, and they look at grant sources for funding, and I can make my way into some of those nonprofits to provide staff development, again, burnout for nonprofit professionals. And they're dealing with so much, right? They're holding so much suffering and working with the kids who are struggling. So giving them tools and then giving them tools to give the kids.
For sure. And the impact, you have seen so far as regards testimonials from people, teachers or parents, what has the feedback been? So you can share a little with us.
Sure, I would love to do that. So again, trying to let go of those outcomes. One time that the impact was just so fascinating to me is I was working with this class. It was over the course of a couple of weeks. And it was probably like the fourth week in. And there was one little one who seemed particularly disinterested, right, during the lessons, and kind of half connected. And so, again, planting seeds, I'm maybe not even planting. Maybe I'm just sprinkling at this point. They haven't even gotten planted, but that's okay. Like sprinkling, some will get planted, some will get watered. And it was actually the parent of that child that reached out to the school and said how they couldn't believe the change in this little one, that he, when he would get frustrated, he was putting his hand on his belly and doing his belly breathing. And he's one who was showing, what we learned in school, never would I have guessed. So again, you just don't know. And I just happen to be fortunate that I have a very good relationship with that school, and that parent chose to call, but they shared that with me. The other things are, we have testing here called MCAS testing. It's high stakes testing. The kids there's a lot of anxiety that gets sort of raised around that. And I've had teachers tell me that kids who literally could not stay in the classroom, like they would get the test, they get so anxious, they'd run out of the out of the room, that they would make eye contact, and the teacher would make eye contact with them and put her hand on her stomach to cue them. And that they would do, and she said, at that point, she didn't even know how that child had done in the test, but the fact that that child stayed for the test, right? That practice we have of staying when we practice.
Stay with
it, just be there. And how proud that child was that they stayed is huge. So I have a lot of, times where I've heard back from parents and from teachers around benefits, particularly around one of the things that we're seeing a lot, and I'm sure you are there too, is anxiety.
Huge.
Around that.
That's it. It's and what I had mentioned before as well, it's not necessarily something extra. It doesn't have to be a whole extra class that they do. It's incorporating these such simple, quick and easy to use techniques that they can empower their students. That's what I was saying. They invest so much time in helping their students do well, that this can be such a game changer between that child, as you said, staying, achieving, and feeling better with themselves, knowing they can do it, which leads into other areas of their lives.
Of course. That confidence. And I do think that idea of just sort of infusing. So I talk a lot about you can directly instruct and you kind of give the lesson. So you have the tool, and then modeling, the teacher modeling in the moment, the practice, and infusion. How is it that you sort of infuse throughout the day these practices that take seconds, maybe minutes, but even sometimes seconds, but can do so much and be so beneficial, even just to sort of calm the nervous system, so that kids are ready. I with schools really focus on that ready to learn thing. Their brains aren't ready to learn if they're activated. So how can we teach them to calm?
That's it.
They're ready, right?
Yeah, it would be great if you could see this. If each teacher would even just instill that 1 minute for each class. What's 1 minute? But and then they are so used to using the practice that when they need it, it's already there.
It's there. Yes. And that's what I talk a lot about, using it before you need, because you cultivate the habit, right? You want to get those neural pathways going so that when you need it, it's your friend. It comes right. It's readily available. I do want to tell you one, just because it was so adorable. One other story about so I do a lot of work with I'll talk about like the about to moment for kids when something is happening. You feel that feeling in your body. So we use anger as an experience, or frustration, how it feels in your body, and noticing it. And that's the about to moment where you're about to do something. If you can catch that about to moment, that's the moment where you have choice, and you can practice your breathing or whatever technique and catch it. The first step though was catching that about to moment. So that was what I asked them to do between my one visit and the next one. And it was over the holidays. And so a little one, the next time we got together, I said, did anybody notice and catch an about to moment? And a little girl raises her hand. She says, I got a necklace for Christmas and my little brother broke it. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And she said, and I said, so what was the about to moment? She said, I was about to hit him. And I said, okay, how did you know? And she said, my hands were like this. My face was hot, like she could tell how her body felt. And she said, and I looked and I saw that my hands were like this. And I remembered, oh, about to moment. So she named it, right? And we know naming, the power of naming a feeling. She said, I named it. And then I said, and then what did you do? And she said, and then I did my breathing. And I said, okay. And she said, and I said, and then what? And she said, and then I screamed and I called my mother. She didn't hit him. I'll take it. Right. So she was so proud of herself. I caught an about to moment. That sense of knowing that the feeling is okay, which I stress so much with it. All the feelings are fine and they don't have to be in charge. Right. So now you're in charge. You noticed it. And you named it. And even if you name it about to moment or angry or whatever you name it, you're taking, you're decreasing your activation, you're giving it a little less control. But and again, I think that is so key, is that giving them that feedback too. Wow, you got it.
For
right?
Sure.
And that builds on the confidence, which carries over into so many things. Because we know for us, when we don't manage our feelings, it feels crummy. It doesn't feel good for kids, right? It doesn't feel good if we like flip our lid, as they say, right?
No, exactly. No.
It feels empowering when you're able to manage a strong emotion, and the same for kids. And we want to like build on that. So, there are those little success, those are sort of the little stories that the academic ones are great, but for me, her ability to do that was just, and how excited she was about it was just really wonderful. Yeah.
What when you teach them this, is there a phrase or a term you say to them, like to think of stop, or like you said, catch it, or?
So we talk about catching. Yep. So caught it.
Yeah.
And then naming it. So you can name it the about to moment, or you can name it. We talk about, I do a catch the feeling game with kids. So catch the feeling.
Yes.
And what's and let's name it. Oh, what is it? Right.
Yeah, so that's nice, because then it's not them. It's so they're not. Yeah. I am not the anger. Here is the anger. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll do that. And then there are, like, depending on their age, like I sometimes will do the pause, right? Stop, pause. I will do the stop. I know the traditional stop acronym. I'll use that practice sometimes, depending on the age.
Sure.
Kids. But I like, especially if I don't have a lot of time with them, I like to make it so like this feels like a game too. Like, so make it a little more playful. The other one that I do a lot is a parade. And so the feelings are like a parade, and how do you notice? And truth be told, like as an adult, I think the parade one for me, it allows you to take it a little less seriously, right? Oh, there's
Tell me about that one.
So this envisioning of feelings as being like a parade, right?
Okay.
It's just a parade. It's not who you are, right? It's just, I'm going to stay on the grandstand and watch the parade go by. So what does your angry look like in the parade? And having these visuals of sort of, oh yeah, there's self-doubt. What does that look like? Yep. Just let it go by. You don't try and stop the parade and get run over by it. You don't jump in the parade and follow it. No, I'm going to stay right here, nice and solid. So sometimes I'll do like feet on the floor, and I'm going to watch the parade, and, you know, and I'll have them draw pictures. Here's my parade. And sometimes I'll even do a picture of them and a picture of like what the parade creatures, you know, look like. Yeah. And seeing that this is you and here's the parade, and it comes and goes, and that's fine. Everyone has one, no problem, right?
That's it. Everybody, yeah, everyone has it. It's yeah.
But it makes it a little playful, because I do think, especially us adults, take ourselves so seriously. And so, you know, when I'm feeling a big feeling like frustrated, instead of being, you know, I could use a variety of ways to work with it and to notice how I'm relating to my frustration. But boy, that like little image of something going by, oh, that's what my frustrated looks. Oh, it's this little yellow fuzzy creature with googly eye, you know, whatever it is. But it kind of gives you, you can't help but kind of smile a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
It gives you a little space. For me, I have found, and with kids, I have found it kind of creates a little space around it. Give it a name, make it a creature, you know, then you don't own it as much. Yeah.
You don't own it, and it shifts the attention away from this big feeling to watching a visual. So it eases as a result as well.
Yeah.
But as you say, the techniques for kids and adults, they all work. They're all just adaptable. So we can all learn a lot from the techniques we teach to children.
I do think, I know I have 2 drop-in groups for adults. Yeah. And so often I find myself saying, when I teach the kids, and they're like, oh, so I think you're right. I think we've made it fun and simple for kids.
Yeah.
It's also okay if it's fun and simple for adults,
sure.
Right? To not be quite so heavy as we start to pay attention to how we, you know, it's all, how are we relating to whatever's happening?
And why not do it in a playful way? Exactly.
Yeah. A little lighter. Yes.
A little lighter.
Yeah.
And can I ask you something else? For somebody, okay, 2 questions. One is, I'll think of 10 more later. I don't want to overwhelm you, so I want you to come back.
Yeah, this is fun.
2 things. First one, for somebody starting out, where would you tell them to begin? And secondly, I've created just a small online course to manage anxiety. So yeah, I'm very excited about it because I struggled myself. So it's everything that helped me. But for somebody who struggles with anxiety, what would your tip be with mindfulness to help them to cope or manage if they're in a panic attack or anxiety attack? So 2 questions. Where does somebody just begin with the whole mindfulness story, and 2, the anxiety?
That's a good question. So I think for me, like the generic, where does somebody begin, is kind of hard because it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Right. That said, if it's, so you're talking an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's say an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. So for an adult, I mean, like at the most basic level, 3 conscious breaths, right? Just stopping and coming into presence. So just this past weekend, I did a presentation during a religious service about mindfulness, and I had like 10 minutes. So it was really one of those, okay, this is their first exposure. How do I really like zero in? And I talked a lot about the practice that I used was listening, because I could easily integrate it into my talk, like just stop and notice the sounds that you're hearing now. Right? And we can kind of, you could feel the room settle in.
Yeah.
Right? And so I talked a lot about, because I do think it's important to have the framework for adults, this idea of what we're trying to cultivate, because so often people have this misunderstanding that we're trying to stop thinking.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many people say, oh, it's great you do that, but I couldn't do it. I think too much.
I agree. Right? That's one of the big misconceptions.
And even when I work with people for a while, I'll still hear them, oh, but I was still thinking. And so I can't tell you how many times when I do a practice and sort of give instruction for practice, when I say, and when you notice it, that's fine. That's just what the mind does. It's not a problem. Nothing is a problem. Nothing is a problem. Mindfulness can hold whatever it is. And so I think it is important to have a little bit of framework around this idea that we're trying to cultivate present moment awareness. Like, what are we trying to do? So we're trying to cultivate this present moment awareness, that we're really present for what's happening. We're paying attention on purpose in the moment. And so sometimes I'll talk about what it isn't, the lost in thought, the, reading a paragraph and not knowing what you read, all those examples, not knowing where you parked your car, all that stuff. And then I'll say, and instead, when we're present in the moment, traditionally often is the breath is used, and we can use anything coming in through our sense doors. So stopping and hearing, that's where I'll talk about the sound. Stop and just hear. What are the sounds you're noticing right now? Right? What are the sensations you're feeling right now? So I'll talk about like cultivating that initial kind of calming, collecting the mind, calming the system, such that we can deepen our capacity for presence by using the sense doors initially as a real good way to kind of begin to ground. So, and I do find, because listening is such a strong sensory perception, that the listening or the sensations or the breath are kind of the go-tos that I would teach. And then we start to notice the thinking, right? Yes. Then we can start working with it. But thinking is a little tricky and emotion, right? So to have a little capacity to ground first, and a little collecting of the mind, such that you can then start to notice where it goes.
Yes.
And notice your relationship. How am I relating to where it's going? How do I relate when I bring it back? So the first, the awareness, and then the second is that relating. And that's this capacity to be, which is sort of why I do the parade, because it's part of what we're trying to cultivate in this attitude of mindfulness, that curiosity and interest.
Yes.
Like a parade, those kinds of things cultivate like more curiosity and interest instead of trying to figure it out, right? Like, so it's sort of this capacity to
and
be
loosen
and open and curious and accepting of whatever you're noticing.
And that allows it to loosen its grip.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't get locked in, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we have this more open, receptive. So I would probably give them a 5-minute sort of overview of sort of what we're trying to, so we're not trying to get rid of thoughts or emotions. I've had people say to me, "You teach mindfulness, you still worry?" Yes, I'm human.
It's what I do with it.
It's how do I relate to it? Yes. How do I work with it? Well, it's my relationship to whatever's arising. I'm not stopping the arising. I'm relating differently, right?
Yes.
And what it does is it allows it to arise for me. What I have seen over these 20 or so years, doesn't arise quite as easily. I don't get hooked as easily. I don't get hooked as deeply, and I don't stay hooked as long to my feelings, right? I create this a little easier. So I think I would give them that framework, and then a really simple breathing. I would see because breathing isn't the right practice for everybody. So I would see what would be a good anchor, and just a really basic anchoring practice. Is how I would start somebody. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, that's great. And then just for them to practice that and to notice how it makes them feel going forward. And it starts with awareness. Yeah. No, that's great.
A lot of people would say, and how long should I practice? And I think they're, integrating it into your day, having a formal practice, like there's all these combinations. So I would explain formal practice versus how do you integrate practice? How do I leave my house and make sure when I hit my garage door that I'm present for like picking moments in my day to make sure and set an intention, because of course I won't sometimes be present, but set the intention to be present for more and more of my day. So we cultivate that continuity of mindfulness throughout the day. So I would sort of encourage that. But when people ask how long, I usually say however long you actually think you'll do it,
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
Could be 3 conscious breaths, could be 5 minutes, could be longer, but to set that intent, like I am such a firm believer in the power of intention. Set the intention to practice.
For sure. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for that, Wendy. No, that's very helpful. Really good, because some people just don't know where to start. So that's really helpful.
Yes.
And for the second question, for people with, if you know, who suffer anxiety attacks or panic attacks, have you got any? I know there are many tools and techniques. What's the one thing that just comes to mind? Not putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Just one thing that would come to mind that you would say, I think this.
So I think what 2 things come to mind, actually. The first would really be to find it in the body, right?
Okay.
So when I've worked with, in particular, my work with people who are dealing with anxiety and panic have been a lot of older students, and it's around test anxiety and school related stuff. And so I really talk a lot about, we do a lot with work with like feeling your feeling in your body, such that when it first starts, before, you know, that model of flipping the lid, before it's all the way, if you can catch it sooner. And usually the way to do that is those really early visceral body sensations, right? And then naming it, right? So, yep, there's tightness in the body, there you're not. And so I always talk about, again, we're back to awareness and this attitude of curiosity. Interesting. There's some, you know, my heart's racing a little bit. Okay, that's what's happening. And I love that phrase. That's just what's happening now. Because what happens with anxiety is there's that rolling forward so quickly, right? That projecting ahead. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be anxious. I'm not going to be able to take this test. I'm going to have a panic attack, right? And it just
escalates, snowballs very quickly.
So feel it in your body, name it, and then I would use some type of a practice. So the one I'll share that a lot of, and there's, like you said, there are countless, right? What is it that they said the Buddha taught 86,000 different practices. So there's a lot of practices, and we've made up practices here, you know, for sure. And so one of the ones that the students that I worked with in high school, because I like to try and meet the energy of the anxiety with the energy of the practice. Just breathing is very subtle. And so to calm the nervous system, I usually try and find a practice that is a little bit more active, that gives you more. So you could add in words, you could add in a visual, right? So you want because the thinking is what keeps the system going. So we want to shift from that thinking of, I'm going to fail this test, I'm so stupid, I never do well, my parents are going to be furious, I'm never going to go to college, like whatever that whole storyline is. Shifting it. And so the practice that I use is actually using your hand. Can you see here?
Can see.
Can see that. So the students will use this, and they can do it when they're sitting at their desks, and no one sees, because they do it. I'll do it up here, but they can do it on their laps under their desk, so no one will see. And you just simply breathe in and out, and in and out. And so we do it on all the fingers. But the other thing that you can add to that, so there's something about the tactile, right? The touching. I know with little ones, sometimes we do this one. But for the older kids, it's just one hand, so they can use their other hand if they're writing or whatever they're doing. It can be very subtle. No one has to notice you're doing it. I can do it on my lap in a meeting. No one will ever, no one notices. And you can add a visual in mountain, strong. So like in the book that Chris and I wrote, there are a lot of nature visuals, right? Lake, calm and clear. So you can use those visuals, or you could just use words, confident, strong. So giving, again, more energy, add words, add a visual. We've added a tactile. And it keeps your mind from shifting towards that thinking that spirals you down that. But the first step, I always feel like it's super important to start with those 2 pieces of, first, you really have to be aware it's happening. And the sooner you're aware, and Yep, this is just what's happening now. It's just, right? Kind of like with sleep problems, the minute that you're sort of, I have to go to sleep, you're making it worse. It's just what's happening now, not woohoo, I want to stay up all night. It's just what's happening now. Okay, my mind is spinning. I have energy in my body. Okay, yeah, it's just what's happening now. And maybe I'll do 4 square breathing, or maybe I'll do, right? Like then you shift to a calming strategy. But first you need to accept where you are and then shift. It's been my experience with the students that I've worked with.
Yeah. No, that's really, really good. I hadn't thought of that one. It's, yeah.
They like that one. You know, I think the students that I've worked with, that's the feedback I give. I try and give a lot of tools because I do think different things work for different people.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think that one gets up because they can also do so much with it. They can add in and, you know, make it their own in that way.
Exactly. If you're naming like a calming word, as you say, like, or confident, and you have a visual to add to that or attach to that, that's very powerful.
Yes.
Oh, that is so useful.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've read, but that's sort of what we do in the book for little ones, right? It's like,
yes,
you know, I'm in being able to kind of tap into those visuals so you can bring that feeling into your body, right? We know our body responds.
Yes.
And so how do you bring in that sense? I mean, I know for me, if I just stop and think, I actually live on a lake. So I think,
lovely,
calm and clear, right? And I can feel that in my body. I'm inviting that in.
Yeah. And the thing is, then it has such a calming effect on you and everybody around you.
Yeah.
So that's the ripple effect, and that's what we want.
It's wonderful.
I'm also 2 minutes walk from the sea here, and it's really peaceful. That's why I moved here. You know, outside Galway. Oh, it's good.
There's something about the water, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Wendy, one last question before I go to bed.
I know, I'm sorry it's so late
No,
there.
it's not. It's not too late. But your book there, it's available on Amazon. And what age group would you say that is for? Because I apologize, I haven't read it yet, but I will. I have seen it.
No problem.
And and I will get a book for teachers or for parents or anybody out there. What age group would you? I know they can look on Amazon.
Yes, so you can get it on Amazon for sure. And the age group that it's listed, they say 3 to 6, but I have used it up until 2nd grade. And actually been told that some schools are using it even older. It's funny. When I did my book launch, I had a lot of adults there, and they came up to me and they're like, "Forget the kids. This book is for us." So, you know, again, the same thing. The practice is, you know, it says stop and take a breath, and just that reminder. Oh yeah, I can do that. Even for adults. But I think as a teaching tool, which is really how I initially envisioned it, I use it pre-K all the way through 2nd grade for sure, easily. And I was just thinking, one of the nonprofits I was at, somebody had their daughter who's in the 4th grade who asked to get the book after I read it. So it can certainly go older. And what it entails in the book, and what I am most excited about is, though it does say, you know, the stop and take a breath, that calming that we were talking about. First, you notice the feeling in the body, right? It talks about how the feeling lives in the body, and naming it, right? That power of naming the feeling, and then stop and take a breath. And then we use a visual. So there's practice like integrated right into the story. And then at the back of the book, we include some other practices. So like the one where you put a beanie, you know, a little stuffed animal on your belly, and it goes up and down. So there are a couple of other hot cocoa breath. You know, there are a couple of other practices there for people who are interested in exploring more. And we also do have an educator's guide available as well that people can get, and that's on the Shambhala website.
That's great. That's great.
More practices.
As you say, you could read it a few times, and each time it goes to a deeper level. That's the nice thing. You see more and can add to it. That's
And you can
really nice.
integrate. What I love and what I do when I teach with it is I'll often stop and say to I'll say to the children, what are times that maybe this would, when you felt this way? What are times when, so you want them to really make that connection that this isn't just this child in this book, right? We all deal with these things. When's a time that you have, what could you do? Oh, stop and take a breath.
Yeah.
Right? So we want to kind of get them to get that sense.
Yeah, that make it relatable. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's lovely. Well, I know what I'll be buying tomorrow from Amazon. What's your vision going forward, Wendy? Sorry, one last question, then I'm going to go.
To bed.
Yes. Your vision going forward, or your plans, obviously you're very busy doing what you're doing.
I think for me, it's really about finding balance. And I've noticed that with this book, right? Like things, you get busier, and my focus has been very much on going out and doing readings and things like that, which I love, and are a bit of sprinkling the seed, like seeing that somebody in Australia posted about our book is very exciting to see that it, we're sharing these practices that for me, I'm constantly reminded, like in my adult group this morning, reminded about how powerful and the possibilities in these practices, right? Like the benefits that we can reap in terms of healing and well-being. So to think that I'm able to have some little itty bitty ability to kind of spread that further is lovely. And I want to balance that, because that for me feels a little like the sprinkling, planting seeds. And then I also have these groups that I work with more on a more ongoing basis. And for me, that's where I'm sort of watering the seeds. Those are the people who are like, I want to deepen my practice. And I really also very much love that work and that capacity to be able to support each other along the path. So I think for me, my vision moving forward is to continuously look to balance those two pieces. How am I sprinkling seeds and working with the little ones in particular and those who care for them? They're adults, right? And how am I supporting this more deepening of practice for those who are in that place and want that support, to have the seeds watered, and for us to do that for each other. Community is very important to me. So I find, like, for me, I'm getting more used to this online thing, but this is like new for me.
Yeah, me too.
I like the technology part. I'm getting more comfortable, but I'm a reach out and like I really enjoy having my little group sitting, having us sitting together, supporting each other in our practice. So I'm balancing those two. That's sort of how I envision kind of juggling, and it seems to have worked so far. I kind of sometimes lean a little bit and go back this way, but it's been working so far.
There's nothing like being in person and that connection and that learning, but we're lucky we have this platform as well. So it's, as you say, it's about balance and being able to reach people that you wouldn't otherwise reach. And what I was told recently was, with putting yourself out there, I was told, it's selfish to keep it all to yourself. How dare you? You got it.
There's a way to look at it, right? Yes. And how fortunate we are that we have accessibility of these practices. It wasn't that long ago where it was really hard to access these practices. And now, particularly with the internet, I know I've taken a lot of online I've benefited from other teachers doing this. And it is a wonderful thing, because you can do it right from on your own schedule, your own time frame, in the privacy of your own home. And how grateful I am to those teachers who have put themselves out there such that I could reap those benefits in my learning. So.
And that's it. Even as a teacher, we still you continually learn, and always growing, and you go over something, you gain something new every time. And that's why it's so lovely to connect and to learn from each other. So I thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And where could I find out more about your team work that you're?
Well, I teamed up with James White, who's in Cork. He's a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, and we developed teacher training. because we like the whole organizational approach idea. So we are now once a year doing teacher training when the teachers can earn their CPD points. So we'll do that in July. And besides that, so what we incorporate there is our primary and secondary school or junior and high school teaching manual. The teacher, they get their manual and we help them develop their own practice. And then they learn how to facilitate children of different ages. And so that's the teacher training. So that's where my manual comes in. Otherwise, I'm doing, again, a bit of online and in person, just to access more people and connect with more people. And so there I'm doing, whatever comes to me. Wherever I'm drawn and brought, I will go.
Sounds wonderful.
So well, that's where I'm at.
Doing this is, and if I'm ever in Galway again, I'll look for you.
Yeah, do. It's not that big. You can't hide.
It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, look, we'll definitely connect again.
That sounds good too.
Your website, do you want to tell anybody who's listening where they can access you and your work?
Sure. It is www.wendyo'leary, wendyo'leary.com. And also on Facebook, I have a page for my work, which is Wendy O'Leary, Educator, Author, Consultant. So I post there about things that I'm doing as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's another Irish surname.
Yes, O'Leary, yes.
Yeah.
My husband's Irish. There are a lot of Irish people in the area where I live as well.
Yeah. Where's he from?
I think he said mostly Cork, but he's 2 generations removed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You can't lose the name.
No, O'Leary. You can't mistake
O'Leary.
that one. Yeah.
Well, we'll remember you. And your book looks beautiful. I'm definitely going to order it. And best of luck going forward with that. But Wendy, I'd love to connect again in a few months and we'll see what everybody's doing.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Sue. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Oh, likewise. Thank you for giving me your precious time.
Oh, sure. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy.
Bye.
Bye.